So the other day, Israel was bombing Gaza, and it's important to understand what happened during that day in the lead up to the bombings. Okay, so I mean, just to give you the obvious background, in May, Israel bombed Gaza for 11 days. Not the first time, right? They attacked Gaza in 2009, and many times since, and this was a deadly conflict, right? So I think over 240 killed, thousands wounded, and there was a ceasefire that was brokered between Hamas and the Israelis by Egypt, and then the Israelis violated it again a few weeks ago when they bombed Gaza, and they bombed Gaza again. So this is on August 22nd, and let me explain to you what happened in the lead up to this. Sorry, I'm just going to play this again. So that's just a little bit of footage from what happened. But earlier that same day, so I'm reading to you here from my thread on Twitter. So at the border fence, hundreds of Palestinians in the besieged Gaza Strip were protesting to mark an arson attack against Al-Aqsa Mosque in 1969. They were shot at by Israeli forces, resulting in dozens of wounded. So again, I'm not sure how much I can show because this is the thing with YouTube. You want to report on crimes by police, by Israelis, and it's like, oh, you can't show it, even though it's for journalistic purposes. No, it doesn't work. So in any case, you get the idea, right? And I don't want to show the pictures again because of YouTube. I'm not sure, but I'm just going to read you what I said here. Over 40 Palestinians wounded. Al Jazeera reports that 2 Palestinians, including a 13-year-old boy, were shot in the head by Israeli forces. And those 2 Palestinians are in critical condition. So there were some photos from Al-Shifa Hospital. And Al-Shifa Hospital, this is, this is very important to understand because this is the main hospital in Gaza. And just a few months ago in May, when Israel was bombing Gaza, they bombed the main road that leads to the hospital. So they didn't bomb the hospital itself, but they made sure that people who were wounded or in critical condition could not get to the hospital because the road's been bombed, right? So this is really emblematic and really speaks to the sick, sadistic nature of Israel's war crimes and their military policy. It's not an accident. They didn't just accidentally bomb it. No, they do this on purpose. They have done this in Lebanon, for example, in 2006, when there was this war in July, August, that lasted 33 days. What did Israel do? It didn't just attack south of Lebanon. It went all the way into the capital in Beirut and was bombing infrastructure on purpose, right? So these are, this is black on white, a war crime, right? This is textbook war crime, destroying civilian infrastructure. And so they do this all the time. This is this disproportionate force, right? This Dahia doctrine it's even named after one of the districts in Beirut from that war because they pulverized it, right? So they believe in this concept of disproportionate force. So when people in Gaza send a kite or a gas balloon or whatever it is, right? So they send these like small balloons, and the Israelis say that they start lots of fires on the farmland. So they send a kite or a balloon, and the Israelis send an F-16, which, is totally proportionate, right? Like, this is how they work. So, something very, really crazy happened here. And I'm going to read you the caption before I show you the video. Cell phone video shows Palestinians trying to fight back by throwing rocks and attempting to snatch an Israeli guard's rifle, whose barrel can be seen sticking out the wall right there. See where the mouse is? Someone is seen firing into this hole with a pistol. And Israeli media reporting that one Israeli guard in critical condition. So take a look at this video. right? So someone filmed it from another angle as well. You can see here. You see that they're trying to snatch the sling on his rifle. So you understand what's happening, right? The Israelis, they are perched inside this tiny hole and shooting the entire time. And this guy came in with a pistol and shot the sniper. So this Palestinian guy, he shot the Israeli sniper. Now, the Israelis, if you recall in 2018, 2019, Palestinians would come every Friday after the prayers. They would come to the border fence. And again, you know, when we say border fence, like, no, this is not Israel's border. This is Palestine. So anyway, they would come to the border fence, this giant fence that the Israelis have erected, and they would protest. They would just protest for the right to return, because as you know, in 1948, you had the Nakba. You had millions and millions of Palestinians who had their homes stolen from them. So millions of them left Palestine as refugees. They were driven from their homes. For example, my cousin Roni, his grandfather is one of them. He was driven from his home in Palestine and he went to Syria. And Jordan also has a lot of Palestinians who went there. And of course, there were other Palestinians who were displaced internally in Palestine, inside Palestine, who were still there, and they're also refugees. And this is the Nakba, the disaster, the catastrophe. And the Palestinians in 2018, 2019, they're protesting. They just want to go back to their homes. They want to go back to their homes. They even have some of them even have the keys to their homes. Some of them are even still alive from the ones who were kicked out. This happened in 1948. It's not that long ago. So they just want to return. And what did the Israelis do? They shot at them. They shot at them. So you know how the U.S. and the West, they always talk about, Bashar al-Assad, you know, the Syrian regime is cracking down on protesters, right? And then they say the same thing about Cuba. They're cracking down on protesters. And when Israel is literally killing Palestinian protesters with sniper rifles, and not just killing them, also crippling them on purpose, not a word. Not only silence, but the U.S. gives them more money to pay for this, to pay for these atrocities, these war crimes, right? So this is what you get. This is what happens, right? Scores of Palestinians who are crippled, wounded, disabled for life on purpose, right? Remember we were talking about disproportionate force? Here's an article in Haaretz, which is an Israeli newspaper, and the headline reads, 42 knees in one day. Israeli snipers open up about shooting Gaza protesters. Over 200 Palestinians were killed. 200 Palestinians were killed, and nearly 8,000 were injured during almost 2 years of weekly protests at the Israel-Gaza border. 200 Palestinians killed. 8,000 injured. I mean, they killed so many people. One of them, Ruzan al-Najjar, she was killed too. She's a medic. They killed her too. They shot her dead. Right? So how old was she? 20. And she's a medic. And she's not the only one, right? They killed so many people who are clearly labeled as medics. You know, the Israelis, they've shelled the UN even multiple times. So, I mean, my parents were in the UN in South Lebanon when it was still occupied by the Israelis. And they've seen them themselves, how this happens, right? You had like an Israeli tank that almost ran over my mother. You had the Israelis shelling UN positions in Lebanon. They've killed UN personnel in Lebanon before. I think this is when 2006 is not the first time in 2006, but the last time it happened, I believe, is in 2006, right? So they shelled UN positions, and then they're like, oh, we had no idea. We thought those were terrorists. Like they have no clue, right? They even killed UN personnel before that, and in Palestine, UNRWA, which is the UN agency in Palestine, they bombed those schools belonging to UNRWA, right? So there was one instance they injured like 200 children or something. They bombed, I think, 17 facilities belonging to UNRWA in, what was it again, 2014? So the Israelis don't care if you are a medic, if you are a journalist, if you are United Nations, they will fucking kill you. Because that is who they are. And the United States will give them the weapons to come kill you and shoot at you. And she is one of the victims. And so you have the Israeli sniper here in this article talking about how he purposely would shoot at Palestinians in the knees. And this is exactly where this was happening, right? So I'm just trying to give you context about what happened at this border fence, where this took place, this video that I just showed you here. This is the same area where you had these protests, right? And so this guy, so I mean, you can understand when you have a sniper who's shooting at you with live ammunition, well, you would try to stop the sniper, no? I don't see why anyone should tolerate having a sniper shooting at them for just standing in their own land and trying to go to their land. This is a war crime. This is murder. And so, in any case, this is the picture of reportedly this Israeli is injured critically, and Nasrallah gave a speech actually about this, and I'll see if I can forward to the part where he talks about it. Hold on.
على مشهد هيك دقيقة بس. مشهد الحيط بغزة الجدار واللي فيه فتحة يعني جدار باطوني عالي وفوق شريط شائك
Yeah, so he's saying there's a very big wall and on the border with Gaza, the border fence, and there's a tiny slit, there's a tiny opening in the wall.
وراء تلال وغرف محصنة ومخليين بس
and armored rooms, bunkers basically.
فتحة.
And there's just a small opening.
الجند الإسرائيلي رشاش.
And through which the Israelis fire their guns.
والشباب الفلسطينيين في ريعان الشباب بيوصلوا على الحيط وهم عزل وبيخططوا انه كيف يسحبوا البندقية لما بزت هاي القماش عليه او
Yeah, and so the Palestinians, they came there and they're trying to figure out, they're trying to plan how to, disarm the Israelis and get rid of the thing with throwing, the sling. As you saw, they're trying to throw something over the rifle. Like there, for example, you see trying to snatch it from him.
الحبل عليه ليسحب منه البندقية ولما ما بيقدر
And when he couldn't,
هذا المسدس الشاب اللي حامل المسدس
the photo of the guy holding the pistol, so this picture down here.
عم بيقوس على الطلاقة للجند الإسرائيلي.
He shot at the Israeli through this tiny slit.
هذا المشهد لازم يدخل التاريخ.
This photograph, this image should be in the annals of history. This is a historic moment, basically.
هذا بيعبر عن ثقافة، بيعبر عن إرادة، بيعبر عن
This conveys or shows, culture and, strong will or willpower.
عن إرادة، بيعبر عن روح،
soul, spirit,
بيعبر عن أمل،
hope,
بيعبر عن أفق في هذه المعركة.
right? And looking forward.
القوة. الشباب العزل بيروحوا لوين؟ على الخط الأمامي. ومين المختبئ؟ خلف الحائط.
Right, so he's saying the brave Palestinians, they go right up to the fence, and who's the one hiding? It's the Israeli.
والشريط الشائك والغرف المحصنة.
Who's the one hiding in the behind the barbed wire? Who's the one hiding in the concrete fortified rooms and the bunkers, basically? Who's hiding behind the wall?
والجبال من الرمال. مين المختبئ؟
And the sandbags.
الجند الإسرائيلي المدجج بالسلاح.
There you go. Yeah. So, like I said, like he said, the Palestinians, they go right up to the border fence like that. And meanwhile, the Israelis hiding behind the sandbags and the fortified walls, bunkers, the giant border fence, and shooting at them. And he's the one hiding. And the Palestinians, they have courage, they have strength, they have willpower, right? So it's true. I mean, who's the one hiding? I mean, you don't really need to be a rocket scientist to figure it out. Just look at the image. It speaks for itself, honestly. And the fact that I'm sure you did not hear about any of this in the news. this is barely reported on. And these are war crimes. You have a occupier who's shooting at civilians. These are civilians. And of course, I've seen people actually online talking about the idea of self-defense, because under the not just the UN Charter, but under international law in general, if you have a foreign power who's occupying your country, you have the right to defend yourself by any means necessary. So that's just basic international law. And by definition, the UN agrees that, the Israelis are illegally occupying Syria. They're illegally occupying Palestine. And, what can I say? This is it's not me saying that. That's international law. So, if you have a problem with that, you should go take it up with them. But after this happened, what did the Israelis do? They bombed Gaza, of course, right? So here we go again with disproportionate force. So they want to teach the Palestinians a lesson, right? Oh, you send a balloon, we're going to send F-16s. Oh, you're trying to stop us from sniping you? Because, like we said, 40 people were injured that day. You had 2 people critically injured, 1 shot in the head. Oh, you're trying to defend yourself? We're going to bomb you. Come on, man. Look, let's be reasonable, rational here. This is not fair. This is not okay. This is a war crime. These are war crimes. This is an illegal occupation. They have no right to be in Gaza. They have no right to put up this wall. They have no right to shoot at civilians, at protesters, like they did in 2018, like they did in 2019. And this, what Palestinians were doing on August 22nd, just a few days ago, this is the biggest. Look, it's not even me saying that. Look down here. Times of Israel, what did they say? The protest marked the first time Gazans have conducted a daytime march toward the Gaza border since December 2019. So that's why it's significant. That's why it's significant, right? And as I said underneath, many Palestinians were killed and injured during the right to return marches in 2018, 2019, prompting the International Criminal Court to consider an investigation into war crimes by Israel. And we covered that, of course, right? So the ICC said it will extend jurisdiction to Palestine, and therefore it will investigate war crimes, not just by Israel, but even by the PA and Hamas, and which is, of course, not what Netanyahu and the Israelis would have you believe. They say, oh, Israel's being unfairly targeted. But yeah, but Israel is not the only party who's being investigated. The Palestinians are also being investigated, right? It's a fair investigation, but they don't tell you that because they want to play the victim, even though they have American weaponry, billions in military aid. They have the upper hand in territorial control, military support, political support, and they want to play the victim. Because, if people found out that they're the ones who are committing these atrocities and they're the occupiers, that wouldn't work. So, this is really emblematic of how the Israelis operate. They have this mantra of disproportionate force, this Dahya doctrine, and that, if you try one little thing and you try to defend yourself, we're going to shit on you, we're going to come bomb you, and we're going to kill you and shoot at you. It's insane, right? And they leave Palestinians no recourse. So they say that BDS is not allowed and it's not okay, and then they say that anyone who resists or defends themselves is a terrorist. Like, what are Palestinians supposed to do? Like, what are you offering then? What kind of recourse and path is there? And it's not just Palestinians. Like, I think people forget that Syria is also being illegally occupied. Israel is sitting on the Golan Heights almost as long as it's been occupying Palestine. So Palestine from 47, 48 until now, and the Golan Heights since 67. There's a 20-year difference, right? And that's almost 80 years. No, not 80 years. What am I saying? It's almost 60 years. So, this is also valuable for Syria in terms of water, oil, a strategic military point. It doesn't, like, even if there's no oil there, even if there's no water there, even if it's a goddamn 1 square meter, they have no right to take it. Do you understand? I don't care what's in the, just because something has resources in it does not mean that it's necessarily, well, it is worse, obviously, but even if there's nothing there, they have no right to take it, even if it's an empty patch of land. You get me? Like, it's about respecting sovereignty. It's about respecting independence. And they don't. And of course, this is nothing compared to what they're doing to Palestinians. Of course, it's not comparable, but it is another example of how they are illegal occupiers. Do you understand? So this is important to get across. And yeah, like, you know, you didn't hear anything about this in the media, I bet you. Did you? Nothing. Israel bombs Syria every week and they barely even report about that. They're tired of it, right? It's like, oh, again? Oh, okay. Same thing with Gaza, right? They just go and bomb it. No one does a thing, not even the UN. They're useless, right? They can't stop the Israelis. They won't stop the Israelis. And that's the problem when you have permanent members like, you know, any permanent members who have veto power on the UN Security Council. You're never going to get anything done because, you know, America is always going to defend them. And yeah, it's flawed from the beginning, unfortunately. Even if it's perhaps well-intentioned, it's not going to work like this. So they're not doing anything. And the media, who should be a fourth estate, is not doing anything. They report about it sometimes, but not really in a way that is, you know, causing any change, which would be what the media should do. And also, even when it comes to, you know, NGOs like Human Rights Watch, like they look at May, a few months ago, and they try to make it look equal, like as if the Palestinians are equally as violent and guilty and aggressive. What? No, it's not equal whatsoever. And they always use different language. So with the Palestinians, like, oh, they did X, Y, and Z, and the Israelis allegedly did A, B, C. Like it's you know, assumed that the Israelis maybe didn't do it. There's a little benefit of doubt there. But with the Palestinians, oh no, they did this crime. Like, come on, man. Unbelievable.